Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different here on the podcast. The following conversation is from an Instagram live I did with one of our Feral Self Care Collective guest speakers. The Feral Self Care Collective is our seasonal membership program, and the spring season called FROLIC starts April 14th. Get 12 weeks of actionable tools, practices, and experiences with live sessions, guest speakers, and more. So check the link in the description to grab your spot today, and I hope you enjoy this episode. So, hello to everybody who is joining us, or for anybody who is watching this on the replay or listening to it on my podcast. If you're here on live with us, feel free to wave at us, to say hello, to drop where you're from. This is all very exciting. So, Michelle, thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for agreeing to come be a speaker for the Feral Self Care Collective. I am so excited, and I'm actually partly excited just because I've been wanting to collaborate with you for such a long time. I know we met like a couple of years ago, sort of briefly on here. And so it's one of these things where I've been like admiring from afar, and we actually get to pull something together. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, and ditto. I've been a huge admirer of your work too, and I'm so excited to be a speaker, part of this collective. Thank you for putting this together. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it, actually. It's been like really, really fun to do something where we can kind of shake things up every 3 months. I'm a manifesting generator. I'm not sure if you do human design or anybody watching or listening does.
I
Are
am
you
also a manifesting generator. Yes.
Beautiful. So the struggle is so real because I also have ADHD and I'm like a hyper focused girly. And I really just love to follow my passions and the things that excite me. And this membership really allows me to do that in a way where I can like bring other people along. And it's just been so, so fun. I really love the vibe of community building and doing things that are focused on action, right?
And
Super excited.
I love that you bring the element of self-care into it. And I think that that's, I don't know, a term we kind of throw around like, oh, I'm having like self-care, but like how important that actually is, that like you're offering people different ways to kind of step off the treadmill of life for us just a second and change your perspective, change the way that you think about things. And it's important to remember that that's how we take care of ourselves, our nervous systems, right? We can't just
Yeah.
like keep going forever. So I love that approach to it. And I love that you're offering that to people. So
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's so funny because the word, like even the term self-care, like, like I kind of hate it a little bit because I feel like it was co-opted by like the blush pink, infinity pool goddess girlies, and I just do not relate to like one hot iota of that. And so,
like I'm
it's
keeping
funny because I
self
wish there was a better word.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Um, so Michelle, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work? Man, it's so fascinating what you do.
I love, yes, I agree. It is so fascinating. I do past life regression, which is I take my clients on a journey through their own past lives to uncover memories from a time that they had a different body, a different time period. And then I help them as a life coach figure out how their past lives are impacting them or showing up today. So the idea is that the past is not in the past, but still very present. And it's armchair adventure of
Oh, I think our internet has shitted out on us for just a minute here. I'm not sure if people are still able to see this, but it looks like we have got a little bit of a freeze. Oh, there we go.
it looks good
Unfortunately,
on
that
my
froze on
end.
my end. Okay, well, let's just hope the recording came through.
Mercury
Oh
retrograde
my
and a Venus
God.
retrograde, and there's actually, is today the day that Neptune and the Sun are exactly conjunct? I think it is.
I
So
feel like we'll just look out into the sky and everything is literally on fire. That's how it's
yeah,
feeling.
it's like the void. We're not staring at the void. The void came and consumed us.
Yeah.
So
Michelle,
Yeah, but
can I
go ahead.
ask you a little bit about how you got into working in this field of past lives?
I got into it through my own experience. I was at a point in my life where I kind of felt like I was just kind of going through the motions. Nothing was actually wrong, right? I like my health was fine, like, everybody, right? You have like problems and then there's real problems, right? But yeah, when I remembered a past life, it completely shifted the way that I thought about everything, but particularly how it relates to my identity. And it's actually why I called my book, actually I have one, Who Do You Think You Are? Because it took a sledgehammer to my previously held concept about my sense of self, right? So we're different genders, gender expressions, we're different races, ethnicities. We have problems in this life we didn't have in a past life, and we have problems in a past life we don't have today, right? And so the idea is that with that perspective of the past, we can open the curtains a little bit wider onto our existence, understand how we got where we are today, and then actually decide who we want to become in the future, because the future is not determined. It sounds a little counterintuitive that I wrote a book about past lives that's actually about creating the future, but that's really how it works. And yeah, it's impossible to have a boring day at the office. Like, it is the most fascinating. I mean, you get it, right? Because I feel like with the work that both of us do, we're like living the dream. And many past lives, we were doing this kind of work, and like the Spanish Inquisition didn't go so well. You know what I mean? And there've been a lot of suppression and even violence against people who were doing work like this. So I feel like this is something I've been waiting for 2024, 2025, because then I can kind of really, you know, have this message and bring it to people, because it changed my life so completely. And so I feel like I get to pay that forward to my clients almost every single day, where it's like, you know what, you can just like, I can tell you that the universe is this vast, incredible place, and that you are vast and incredible. I could tell you that, but I'd rather show you. And then when I show people, they're like, wow, this is absolutely incredible. And it put me on a totally different path. That was about 20 years ago. I've been doing this for a really long time. I've worked with thousands of people from all walks of life. And yeah, I love being able to share that eye-opening experience with other people. I do it all day long. I can't wait to do it for your collective. That'll be so exciting.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. First thing, the name of your book, I love it. Like, it's so unforgettable. Can we just see it again, just in case there's new people here? So, Who Do You Think You Are is Michelle's book. And like, I just think that's such a really great, memorable title. And I think
Thank
that it
you.
also really incorporates those pieces of the fact that, like, who we think we are. It's so funny because if you ask someone, like, what do you do? And it's like, well, do you have, like, I'm a parent, or I'm a wife, or this is what I do for work, and all of that. And there's so many other layers when we think energetically, or when we think of, the past life connection, like you said. Like, you must encounter a lot of people who are holding on to some residual past life type trauma. I know there's somebody in my life that seems to have a very deep past life connection that's a little unclear, but like in terms of the trauma carried forward from these, it's almost like memories, experiences. Some people experience things like night terrors. I know that this person does. And certainly what you're talking about, like the kind of work we do now, we do have this incredible privilege to be public with it and to be able to share a message in a really wide and open and expansive way. Whereas, I mean, just in people that you meet these days in this timeline, the witch wound is so prevalent that you must see that. God, you must see that like 20 hours a day, every day or something.
I do attract a lot of clients to myself with that witch wound. And I think, I'm sure you probably see this too. I sometimes will be dealing with something specific in my life, and I'll get like 3 or 4 clients in a row that are dealing with something like similar, and I'm like, okay, I'm listening, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it is a lot about healing trauma because we
Yeah.
carry these traumatic experiences with us over many lifetimes. And it's not the past life itself that's impacting you, it's the way that past life is affecting you energetically, which is about usually the emotions of it, right? So the guilt or the terror or the shame or the even the love and the joy, right? That's what we bring with us into the next life. So I do work with a lot of clients who have night terrors or phobias.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting one where they're just absolutely intensely afraid of something that they can't track to something that they know in this life, and then they remember a past life story connected to it. They're often able to release that phobia, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, because we carry it with us unconsciously, and our unconscious mind impacts us in so many ways that we don't even realize. It creates these biases, right? Limiting belief systems, and again, like fears that might be holding us back. So sometimes it's about letting go of something we're carrying that's very specific, trauma related.
Yeah.
um, but once we do that healing, the other thing that happens is that we're able to like get rid of all of these kind of false identities that we have connected to ourselves in this life. And that's really what my book is about. It's a book about identity, um, kind of chipping away all. That's why it's called Who Do You Think You Are, right? Kind of cheeky, but are you a cisgender female white woman in this life? Yeah, right. But that's not who I am. That's not the totality of who I am. Or we're not our suffering. We're not what's happened to us. A lot of people that are people who have suffered trauma come to identify with that trauma. It's like who they are. It's part of their story.
Yeah.
Or what you were saying about our jobs, our roles, right? So once we're able to get rid of all of those false identities, we discover who we truly are, which is a soul, not a body, on a journey over many lifetimes. And then once we make that connection about our own true nature, we're able to see that more easily in others as well. So there's a huge kind of connotation for compassion, equality, love, all of these things that we could actually implement as a community, as a country, as a, globally, if we all understood about these false identities. So that was the intention behind the book, was to really help people chip away at that, to kind of find, wow, I am this eternal wise, I'm an elder. Even though I might only be, a certain amount of years old in this life, I've been old and wise many, many times, and I've had this vast amount of experience. So if we could tap into that wisdom and use it in our life today, right, at a time when we really, really need it, especially 2025 has been a little dizzying so far, I think, for most of us. Kind of like,
Yeah.
what is happening? Um, so yeah, so that's a little bit about what I do and how I do it and my intention behind my work. Does that make sense?
It does. And I just find it so fascinating because, I'm sure you've experienced this as well working with people, is that sometimes people will have a sense of like, why am I like this? Or like, like, there's no reason for me to feel this way. And I think that there's something that's very powerful about understanding that there can be a lot more energetic baggage or stuff that we're bringing to the table that we might not even be open to be aware of in the first place.
Yeah.
That can really help with self-understanding, right? I mean, this is why people like human design. This is why people like astrology. It's we're always kind of looking for a reflection of who we are and everything around us, and we have so many answers within us, and obviously through these different timelines, and the fact that time is not really as straightforward, as linear as we like to think it is, based on this sort of primitive operating system and this equipment that we have to kind of interface with it.
Yeah.
And so I find that So interesting. So interesting. I have to ask, Michelle, when it came to your experience of connecting with your past life, was that something you intentionally sought out, or was it more of a spontaneous experience where you had like an awakening to it or some sort of remembrance, or was this kind of something that's always been a part of your worldview?
So it was not a part of my worldview. Growing up, no one in my family ever talked about reincarnation, past lives. My parents are religious, they're Christian. They're like, we don't believe in that. And in fact, I never even heard of it. I didn't grow up in a very diverse place either. So there weren't friends of mine that were like maybe Hindu or Buddhist or, talked about things like that from other cultures. So I really grew up in this isolated bubble where I didn't know anything about it. But at one point, somebody gave me a really famous book. I'm sure you've heard of it and everyone else, Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Brian Weiss. And I actually read that in one sitting. I couldn't put it down. It was the most compelling thing I had ever read. I felt like a magical moment the way I connected with it. And so I ended up finding out that he did a retreat, like a weekend retreat, and I went to it. So I did intend to connect with my past lives. And, there were like lots of people there, like hundreds of people. Now when he speaks, there are thousands of people, but this was 20 years ago. But there were a lot of people there that really wanted to do this. And he's like, I can only take one volunteer to come up on stage and demonstrate this. And I was like, ooh, maybe everybody was dying to. And even though I was sitting in the back and, like, he's like, okay, you can come up here. And on stage in front of hundreds of people, I had this experience that just literally shattered my everything I thought about myself, about life. But in addition to that, there was a healing that happened. Like I was joyful and happy, even though my grandmother had just died, my marriage was falling apart. I was like, okay, but everything is meant to be. There's a bigger picture, so as a tool, it really brought me this like wisdom and insight that I needed to navigate that period of time in my life. And I ended up like just being like, this is what I want to do. This is like the most compelling thing ever. And again, I feel like I do pay it forward all the time. So yeah, it was a true gift. And he's still teaching. He's well into his 80s, and he's still teaching. I think he's teaching at the Omega Institute this summer. And then that past life story that I had on stage with him is actually in his most recent book, which is called Miracles Happen, which is a collection of people's, different past life stories. So that's the story. I'm a student of Brian's, but I also can thank him for my first past life experience, which was absolutely life-changing.
That's amazing. That
Yeah.
actually, it sounds like one of those things that was, well, I mean, it's probably easier in hindsight, but it sounds very divinely guided. Like it sounds like there was, when there's something that just activates you and it's like tugs on you and it's almost like, oh, I was born for this. Like I see that and this is why I'm here. And if you follow those threads and follow those leads, which is why anybody watching this is why it's very important to drown out the noise and really learn to listen to your soul, because there's always going to be 500 million billion things telling you all the dog shit things you're supposed to be doing, and it doesn't necessarily connect with you whatsoever. But when you learn to
Well said.
listen to that, you can go to these incredible places. So that sounds like fated. That's such a beautiful story.
It is, and I think that that's really well said. I mean, people thought I was crazy. They're like, what is this? And because this was 20 years ago. People think
Yeah.
it's weird today, but 20 years ago they definitely thought it was weird. Like, what is happening to
Yeah.
And I just wanted to shout from the rooftops about just how amazing and life changing the experience was. My friends
Yeah.
tease me. They're like, you think everything comes from a past life? I'm like, it does.
Yeah.
Um, but it was that like follow your passions. Your passions will not lead you wrong. If you find something that just lights you up, and again, like the path did seem to kind of like be illuminated. I could have not chosen it. I could have stayed and ignored it. you know,
Yeah.
but it's important, yeah, to everyone listening, follow those passions, those little breadcrumbs. Those lead you to your purpose.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be as profound as like now you're sharing past lives with thousands of people and writing books about it and whatever. But, you know, it can be in smaller ways too, right? So,
Mhm.
but yeah, no, it's, that's my origin story. You know, I saw myself in a past life. I was actually a man in the past life I had on stage
Oh, wow.
too. And I just remember looking down and I had these, I could see in my mind's eye, like kind of clairvoyantly, I had these fingers that were like thick, like sausages. I was like, wait, what? I think I had like a French manicure that day or something. Like I was just like, very, because I identify very strongly as being like a cisgender female.
Yeah.
And I could feel things about myself. I could feel that I wasn't super intelligent, but like, and I had this wife that I really, really adored. And I was just like, what is happening here? You know, it was very, very strange because it was such a different persona than I am today. Um, so yeah, so false identity. Am I a woman? No, right? Am I a anything, right? So that was an amazing moment and very life changing. And then after I died in my past life, I actually witnessed my consciousness being separate than my body. And a lot of people talk about having like near death experiences and DEs or dying on the surgery table and coming back. This is a way you can have that experience without dying or having a life-threatening accident or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So those two moments, seeing myself in a different body and then seeing that my consciousness survived my death and was separate from my body, those two experiences are life-changing for most people.
Yeah.
Just that alone.
Well, it
Yeah.
it sounds very similar, at least theoretically, to that experience of like an ego death when
Yeah.
you're in the psychedelic experience where all of a sudden you're like, oh, me, like
Who
what's
was me?
that?
Yeah. And you mentioned this earlier, right? Like there are many tools, many paths. There's one truth, and there
Yeah.
are many paths. And what I like to share with people was this was my path, right? This is how
Mhm.
I experienced that ego death. And the way that I structured my book is actually inspired by a practice called neti neti, which is from ancient yogic tradition, which is kind of like I'm not this, I'm not that, right?
Mhm.
So whenever I started using those meditations, I always found them to be so like overwhelming. Like, who is the I that is asking the question or trying to find the no mind or the no self? I was just like, now my head hurts, you know, from thinking about it. But I wanted to like modernize that and actually make it practical. So each chapter in my book talks about something you're not. So you are not your name, you are not your looks, you're not your gender, you're not your race or ethnicity. So each chapter strips away one of your false identities until you finally get to the end where it's like, well, now I know who I'm not. So who am I, right? Which is that you're a soul with not a body on a journey over many lifetimes. And if everyone everywhere understood that truth, I think that we would have a very different society.
Oh, I agree. I think the fact that it's very strange that we exist in this situation where we don't know how any of it started. We don't know how any of it ends. All we really know is that we
Or was
are
there
kind
a
of catapulted
start?
into the world. What's
Right.
that?
Or was there a start? And is there or like, right? Does time even
Yeah.
exist? Right.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
actually, oh man, my newest like hyper focus hole is the consciousness stuff, like my big toe, all of that, like consciousness being like reality and then physical stuff emerging from that. It's so crazy to me, but
Love it.
it doesn't make any less sense than like the traditional story of what's going on. But we all know we're going to die. And like that's such a beautifully terrifying but also liberating fact of life, and it really does kind of change and shift how you move depending on your awareness of it. And so this idea of reincarnation, of bringing past lessons or past fears or whatever it is to the table, and then also what are we collecting right now and what can we learn from all of that stuff is like it's so amazing and it's so fascinating. I mean, in a world where we could think about 10 million things, this is like one of the things that is just like why not think about that? Because it seems so fascinating.
Totally. And you're right. Death is the only thing that we know we can count on. But there's also a million smaller deaths we experience throughout life. I mean, it's possible to have a past life in this life, right? I tell people all the time, like, think back of when you were 20. That was
Oh
a
yeah.
past, for me, that was a past life. Even
Yeah,
5 years ago feels like a past life. So that's
truly.
really how we're creating the future, is like constantly letting go of what's not serving us, letting go of the past, not being stuck in these patterns. And some of these patterns are just, pain traps from
Yeah.
our painful experiences from the past. And once we are liberated from that, we constantly reincarnating. We can reincarnate now, right? Anytime we want. Every day is a new chance to be a different person. And I think that that's an interesting perspective to learn from. Yes, your past lives, but that the past is not this ethereal, far away thing. It's this continual arc, right?
Yeah.
You're constantly renewing, rebirth, renewal, every single minute of every single day.
That's so true. Oh my gosh. And that's been like the defining thing in my life for sure. I mean, I was so profoundly mentally ill for so long, and I was given every diagnosis under the sun. I was told I'd never live a normal life, blah, 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 blah. And it's so crazy because that became my identity, to the point that identity work now is, I think, almost unfairly easy for me, because I've seen firsthand the dramatic, rapid, like collapsing time shift that happens when you decide. It's like that parable of the holding on to something in a jar, and if you just let it go, you can get your hand out. And it was like, when it becomes your entire identity, what happens is you don't know how to exist without an identity. So how can you let go of that? And mine for so long was like, I'm profoundly mentally ill. I'll never have a normal life. I'll never be like, my entire life right now would probably make old me have a fucking seizure. Even the possibility that it could be that I would be public, that I would, share my words, share whatever. It's insane, because that didn't align with the person that I believed myself to be and the possibilities I thought I had. I mean, I thought I was going to die before 30, and it was going to be some terrible whatever. But it's like, truly, once you realize, like, the less you identify with the story of who you are, and the more you realize that it's malleable, even when you look back on the past of this life,
Yeah.
and you can say, how can I look at this from a different perspective and make it so that I'm the main character or the hero instead of the victim, or the this or the that, or whatever your story is. Mine was very much seeping in my victimhood. So that's the example that came to mind.
I think you bring up something amazing, and they talk about this in a lot of indigenous traditions, like shamanic cultures, the path of the wounded healer,
Yeah.
that it's those of us who know how to heal ourselves that have something to teach and kind of share about it. And
Yeah.
that was your path. Like I said, you figured out how to loosen that identity and not be stuck in that story.
Yeah.
And now that's what your writing is, and helping people do. And again, many paths. This was
Yeah.
mine. This completely changed my life. It put me on a totally new trajectory. And yeah, I never thought I would be speaking and talking about this either. If you would have told
Yeah.
me, 30 years ago that this would be my career, I would be like, what? But you got to, when you're called, you find it.
Yeah.
Like we were saying, you pay attention to those moments. So yeah.
Yeah, and you have a point where you're like, are you called, or are you not? And if you're called, it's, you either take it up, or you have to live the rest of your life realizing that you are so attached to a story of what other people would think of you, or how people would, because I mean, you got to kind of, I think, really disconnect from how other people receive you or perceive you, in if you really want to truly chase your soul path. And it doesn't mean that it has to be something super out there or considered fringe,
Yeah.
sort of like what we do. It can be anything. There's a million people out there that are going to school to be, say, a doctor, and then they decide, you know what, actually, I don't want to do this. I want to go be an artist or something like that. And it can bring up the same kind of response from other people. But at the end of the day, all we really know is that all we really know objectively is our own existence. So why
Yeah.
limit yourself based on anything from the outside? And it can be really hard for kind of tribal brains that are very hardwired to seek social support to be able to drop that struggle. But it really is a struggle that once you drop it, it changes the like you said, trajectory or frequency of your life. You end up in a place that's so dramatically different than anything you possibly could have imagined,
Yeah.
that it just brings more and more stuff. Something you said that was interesting is that piece about the wounded healer. Now, I'm curious, just as a side note, if you feel the same thing as me, which is almost like a responsibility to have to share this thing that is like, when you have a transformative experience and you recognize how easy it could be, how simple it could be to find little bits of threads of who you are, or what could be possible for you, it almost feels like you can't keep it to yourself. Like, it feels like that would be keeping some sort of dirty, shameful secret. It feels like you kind of have to share it.
I definitely felt like it came with a responsibility.
Yeah.
That's the way that I would phrase that. That this is a real gift, and you're going to have it, and it's going to come in this really profound way. But yeah, you're supposed to pay it forward. And I love what you said about not caring what other people think, right? And I think that a lot of that, I think that people are held back in life so much by, trying to fit into a certain mold that their family expected them to be in, or
Mm-hmm.
society, or culturally, or organized religion. And a lot of that is very connected, at least in my experience, both in my own and what I've seen my clients deal with the witch wound,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Women and gender nonconformists that color outside of the lines,
Yeah.
right? And the witch wound is about, get back in that box that you're supposed to be in. You're not supposed to be wild. You're not supposed to, and what I'm seeing today is a lot of people who did have a lot of that witch wound in past life coming out and feeling like, no, in this lifetime, I'm going to be as big and bold and bright and nobody can stop me.
Yeah.
And I think it's how we're going to make change on this planet, collectively. Like, and it's not just women. Like I said, it's any kind of gender nonconformity. Like, it transcends gender. If you read my book, there's a whole chapter in that.
Yeah.
But it's a feminine power, right?
Yeah.
And we all contain masculine and feminine power in with us. So again, yeah, it came with there was a little bit of a heaviness that came with it. Like, oh, okay, you're going to have this experience, but yes, you're going to have to commit yourself to, teaching it and sharing it, and all of the stuff that comes with that, right? We have certain lifestyles that we live as healers. A lot of us are introverts, or like highly sensitive people, or
Yeah.
you mentioned you have ADD, ADHD, and I think a lot of us are neurodivergent,
Yeah.
right, in a certain way. So we kind of were born not fitting in anyway.
Yeah.
So we may as well make the most of
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I've noticed that trend with a lot of my clients. That seems to be pretty consistent. So
Yeah. Oh, that's so
yeah,
amazing. Oh, it's like endlessly fascinating to me. So if people are just joining us now here live on Instagram, or if you're watching this on replay, Michelle is going to be coming and giving a group past life regression session for the upcoming season of my seasonal membership program, the Feral Self-Care Collective. This season is called Frolic, and it's all about playing in the realm of the self and self-expression, and really just trying to get to know yourself on a deeper level. So the Feral Self-Care Collective is always has themes of orienting towards joy, hope, positivity, play, creativity. And it's a 12-week program, and Michelle is one of our wonderful guest speakers that's going to be coming up. Could you tell us just a little summary of what your session is going to be like for the group?
yeah. So whenever you work with me, you don't just listen to me talk about past lives. You have a chance to experience it, right? So we're going to have a little chat. I'm going to explain a little bit of the concept behind past life regression, kind of how it works. And then we'll have a group past life regression where I'll guide you through a past life memory. And, it's different for everybody, and I'll get into this. Some people see it, some people feel it or know it, but a really great side effect of doing a group regression like that is you start to get more confidence in how your own intuitive abilities work. And, you know, not all of us have to be professional psychics. We're all human beings and we're all intuitive. So there's a little bit of a kind of figuring out what works for you, a side effect from that benefit. So it's a little bit intuitive development as well. But it's always fun and it's super interesting. And, you know, if you're sending out replays, people can do the meditation as many times as they want.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work the first time, maybe, you know, you were distracted or whatever, you can do it again and again and again. So
That's so amazing. Yeah, with this program, it's been really cool to see because it's 12 weeks and there's like pretty much something every single week. So for Frolic, we're going to have, I think 11 of the 12 sessions are going to be live, which is super cool.
cool.
This season, we did 10 of the, we had 10 of the 12 that were going to be, live. And the neat thing about it is this program is about praxis, right? So instead of just reading all the things and being like, oh, cool, I know how to meditate, I know how to do this, I know how to do that, I know this creative practice or whatever, we're actually focusing on action and experiential kind of stuff so that you know, instead of going, oh, I want my life to be more playful, more creative, whatever, you'll know that like once a week when you're in this program, there's going to be something you can do and there's going to be replays so that you can watch it as many times as you would like to watch it or you need to watch it. And it's been interesting with this season that we're in right now. So the next season, the season that Michelle is going to be presenting for is starting on April 14th. So sign your ass up for it, people. But it's really neat because people have been having these really cool experiences just in these like 60 to 90-minute sessions, whether it be somatic stuff or whether it be creative practices, people are having these epiphanies and these breakthroughs and these deeper levels of self-understanding, because ultimately we just need to take the time and space to be able to pay attention to that stuff, right? And it's not this thing that has to like turn your life upside down or anything. It's something that we can come together and do in a community, and you can get a lot from it. Like even your story that you're talking about right now, just the fact of like reading the book and then pulling the threads of what brought you to the choice going to that the retreat, right? Or even just that experience of being on that stage and how that can really ripple through life. So the thing that I love the most about it, I mean, it is my program, so I guess I kind of have to say that, but like from a selfish level, I'm like, oh, so I get to like do all this cool stuff with people and be like the chief commander den mother of fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Like,
well, I love that you called it Frolic, and anybody who's followed you or familiar with your work know that like everything you do has some sort of fun or joy wrapped into it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's a super important element too, because sometimes we're talking about like spiritual work, it can feel heavy.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a stigma and a stereotype about spiritual work that it's like this like heavy thing, where it's not.
No.
It's about getting rid of all the things that are limiting our joy or holding us back from our own free, true self and expression, the best expression of ourself and all the creativity that comes with that. Love, joy, all of that. So I love that you work that into the title too. Like we're going to frolic, and we're going to get rid of some stuff that's holding us back, but we're going to be gaining, joy. And I think that that's amazing that you bring that to this group. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been really fun for me because I was thinking about my role in everything and what I want to bring to the world. And I think my main overall message is that I don't think this shit really has to be that hard. You know what I mean? Like you're saying, a lot of this stuff is inherently heavy. So I don't know why we bring this expectation of heaviness to it, because really perspective is everything. And it doesn't mean that it's not to minimize the fact that things can feel heavy and hard. I mean, I've got my own fair share of trauma and shit too, but I will say that I'm way less motivated to like do the work when it feels like doing the work.
Yeah.
When you feel like it as play or as something fun or as something where you get to, I see self-understanding, whether it be past life, this life, whatever, as something that if you approach like you're courting yourself, like you're old timey, like, oh, I'm dating me. I can't wait to get to know me. Ooh, tell me
What
more, girl.
it's
And
all about, right? Yes.
instead of it being this thing where you're like, oh, I gotta do shadow work. I'm just gonna sit in the corner and cry. Like, you don't need to do that. And the more, it'll be more motivating, more fun. And I think you get more from it if you approach it in the spirit of play, because ultimately it seems, again, like one of those things where we're just holding on to the struggle because we feel like it has to be hard.
Yeah,
And it's like, just relax your hand, take it out of the jar, flail around a little bit.
that's right. It's about joy. I love it.
Well, thank you so much for
You.
being here and talking with us. I'm super excited for your session. I'm super excited for Frolic. So if you guys are watching this, guys, go sign up for Frolic. It is very affordable. It's very fun. 12 weeks of actionable tools, practices, and experiences, including Michelle and her group Past Life Regression. We're going to have, which I'm like counting down. I'm looking forward to figuring out what's going to come up, actually.
Excited to hear about it. Yeah. And thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this. And yeah, if you didn't sign up because it looks like a bunch of really, really, really amazing stuff and interesting speakers. And yeah, it looks like so much fun.
Awesome. Well, make sure you are following Michelle. Past Life Michelle is the handle. Make sure you are following Michelle, Past Life Michelle, on Instagram. If you're watching this on YouTube and or on the podcast, where I'm going to be putting this as well, I'll put links to find her website and all of her stuff there as well. So thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.
Bye.